sales call that just ended, and so I was not sure I was going to be here right at 1:30. So,
well, welcome. Thanks for taking an hour and working with us on this.
I'm excited. This is actually what I'm dealing with. So let me introduce myself and then I'll explain all this stuff. So my name is RandallBennett. I went to Weber State. I graduated in 2005 in the communication department over, if you guys know Drew Tyler, he's like my best friend, literally. So yeah, I studied broadcast journalism, and that was kind of that's my thing I'm most excited about is video. But I was also a technologist, which is kind of weird. Like the Venn diagram of like technologists and video production people is like literally me. So I'm kind of a weird kid that way. I worked in local news for a while, and then I left because, like, frankly, I didn't like the content, and it just isn't awesome. It's kind of sucky. So I became a technology journalist. I worked for Engadget and for CNET. Engadget was like a year old at the time. It was acquired by AOL, and I moved to New York, and I've like moved like 13 times since then. And I just moved back to Ogden in July, so now I live here. I started, so through all these experiences, they're kind of like a unified stream. Like, I was always a technologist who liked video, and as I went to work for Engadget and CNET, they don't have the same budgets to produce video as local television, because local TV is actually like, it like prints money. Like, those ad spots are worth tons of money, and online video just isn't as lucrative, so the budgets aren't there. And so as I was doing this stuff, it bugged me. Like, I wanted to produce the same quality stuff that I was doing on the local level, but the tools didn't exist to do so. Like, I was constantly frustrated that like I was kind of having to come up with hacks and all this other stuff. Anyway, I learned to code, and I started building things to solve my own problems. And eventually I started this company called Depresso, like this. And we make it simple for broadcasters to use social media on TV. So our customers include, we have a fancy new slider I can show you. These are some of our customers. KSL is our launch partner, because I know them. And yeah, we have customers that are national networks and local TV and like all over. It was a side project that I did, probably like you guys have done side projects. It was a side project that I did for like a year and a half, and then I went full-time on it this year. And I'm growing like crazy, which is totally awesome. Our first full-time employee starts tomorrow. So that'll be exciting. So before I jump too much further, I want to ask questions to know my audience. Who here wants to like work in startups or build stuff for themselves as part of a startup or side projects or whatever? Just a couple people. That's okay. Have you heard of Y Combinator before? You don't like Y Combinator?
No.
Really? Wow.
I just don't like the screening process.
Okay, well, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of 500 Startups? Dave McClure. So there's some familiarity. Airbnb. Like everyone know what Airbnb is? Okay. Have you heard of Mixpanel? Some people. Google Analytics, probably everyone's heard of. Have you heard of the Lean Startup, like Eric Ries? Nodding heads, so a lot of people have, okay. And then lastly, my company you've never heard of, Depresso. So the thing that we are really good at as a company, like we're really good at building software. And the software that we use is like better than anyone else out there. Like our competitors, they build these proprietary hardware boxes, and they're writing the actual pixel rendering themselves. And we actually take like a really weird approach, which is we just use browsers and broadcast the browser on TV, which is like, so it's $500 a month for people, which is like an order of magnitude less than they're paying normally. So for them, they really like us. And one of the things that we're really bad at is marketing. I'm not a salesperson by nature. I'm really good at like delivering my vision and showing you why I care, but I don't know how to like prospect or like, and I don't like it, to be frank. Like I don't like to do that stuff. So I more just like put up with it than actually love it. So I studied analytics a lot, and not that I'm good at it, but I can give you at least like a base level that you guys might not have already, and some real world examples of times where analytics fundamentally changed how products were developed, and they're things that I've seen firsthand. So startup metrics for pirates. Have you guys heard of this before? Raise your hand if you've heard of this before. You've heard of this before. I'm so proud. So you know basically everything I know. Just kidding. So startup metrics for pirates is not my invention. It's Dave McClure's, and he's the founder of 500 Startups, and he worked at PayPal, and he's a guy. Anyway, I'm going to walk you through this presentation because it's like the shortest analytics presentation, and I can explain some things along the way. And the cool part is it's really easy to remember because you say R. Can everyone say R? R. Thank you. So, startup metrics for pirates. Oh, I should make this full screen because it'll be prettier. So startup metrics for pirates is these specific areas. This describes how a customer uses a product. And this is not just web products. This is like literally every product that exists in the world. So if you're not building a web startup, it's okay. Like if you're building, I don't know, some other software, but you can still use this like mnemonic and these methods to understand analytics broadly. So acquisition, activation, retention, referral, revenue. This is sometimes the order that it happens. It's the way that you'll always be able to remember it, A-A-R-R-R. So you can read those and understand them, and I'll explain. We're going to explain each one. This is a really ugly diagram that explains how all of this stuff works together. So acquisition means all of this stuff, like how you get customers, people who find you from whatever channel. So for us, like most of our people here are from word of mouth. So that's our acquisition is mostly like broadcast people talking to their friends. If you have a social company, it's probably going to be like other virality things, which is how you acquire customers. Activation is the second step, where people kind of go to your website and then hang out. That means like the things you focus on there are like how your product works, how easy is it for someone to sign up, how long do they stay on your site. Like those are sort of pieces of activation. Retention, do people come back? And we'll talk about, we have actually two forms of retention in our product. Referral, how you get people to tell their friends, virality, which we'll talk about as well, and then revenue, how you make money, right? So this is the other diagram. Let's explain. So this is a typical funnel. If you think about like a user or a customer life cycle, it's all a funnel. You start out with like acquiring a bunch of potential customers, and at the bottom you have like how many customers you actually make money from, right? So this is an example that Dave's, I'm going to get rid of that little message because it's bugging me. This is an example that Dave used. We build similar spreadsheets all the time that show like how someone makes it through the funnel to money. Actually, let me show you ours. Ours looks like this. This is not the spreadsheet version, but it'll be fine. So for us, like people land on the site, or we actually have a guy who does sales. He does our international stuff. And he will like email people, he'll cold email people all the time. So that's like acquisition. And then people who come to our site based on the cold email or give him a follow-up, they're activated, right? Also, maybe, like these are the other activation things people can do. So view a couple of pages, sign up for our trials, like our key activator, like that's what we actually want to have happen, and we suck at. Then we have retention, that's before the sale. So someone who like is in the sales process, who like, we're calling them on the phone and doing demos with them. Like how do we retain them? Do they stick around for a long time or do they just leave? And then we actually have, we start making money from people before they refer other people. So our AARR is out of order, but you know, we do a monthly plan. You might care about churn, like how often you lose customers. Like we don't have that problem because we don't lose customers, which is a really good sign. And then retention is how you measure churn off post-sale. So for us, we have like a little dashboard that we use to like make sure that our product's working. It looks like this. So this is like the last 24 hours. People will send a little post to air. This little graph measures how many times that happens for different customers. So like in Latin America, they freaking use us nonstop. Like all of these are Latin America, all these like 100 and 200, they're all Latin America. Anyway, and then we have this retention dashboard that we built, and this is seriously like I built a little thing that pings a Redis list every time you do something. So like it's like super simple, and we just merge in our user database. Anyway, but this lets us see like, you know, how many people are sticking around and how many people have gone inactive. And if they're inactive, like why are they inactive? Most of them are demos, or we have like this guy pays, this guy pays. So they're just paying us money to like not use our software, which is concerning. Like why? Why do they do that, you know? Anyway, okay, back to this. So, the things to focus on with acquisition steps, you want to like, so you need to measure this somehow. I recommend a tool like Mixpanel or Google Analytics. Google Analytics is like the no duh, like anyone can use it kind of thing. Mixed panels approach is slightly different, and there's a bunch of other ones like KISS metrics, and there's a billion little things popping up to track events. So instead of tracking page views, you're tracking like, if you're in a mobile app, right? Like what someone's discretely doing in a mobile app, like they opened this menu, then they did this, and then they did this. So mixed panel is really good at that stuff. And you need to track like where your users start coming from, right? So how do they find you? If you can track that, you know, it makes measurement of this stuff and optimizing it a little bit easier. Activation, so you have to think about your individual app or your individual product. Like what does it mean when a person's activated? Normally it means they had a good first experience with your website. They probably viewed a couple pages and they like played back, maybe they played a video where they like did some other function that like indicates that they didn't just bounce, right? The worst situation is you pay, you know, $3 a click, they come to your site and leave immediately, and you just waste money. So that means like, so tracking this metric lets you optimize like how long they stay on the site, right? Or how happy they are. Tracking retention, you know, you can do these like little tricks to get people to come back, lifecycle emails, or Twitter, Facebook updates, things like that. And then you can track like based on those efforts, how did, you know, what happened based on those efforts. Referral, again, you know, Dropbox, classic example. You know, you refer your friends and we'll give you a gigabyte for free or whatever. They do that. I don't know what they do, but some amount of space for free. That is, you know, one person refers 10 people on average. That person refers 10 people, which is like a, you know, that's the reason why they doubled from last year to this year in terms of customers. And then revenue, how you make money. Like analytics don't tell you that, so come up with a business model probably before you build your company. I recommend anyone who's in Utah, like, don't build a Twitter or Facebook, like a social thing that doesn't make money for your first product, because it's like impossible to find quality investors in Utah, which is not a diss on Utah, it's just like there's 100 billionaires who live in Silicon Valley and there's 0 who live in Utah. There's just more investors there, so it's really hard to do here. Okay, so types of metrics. Qualitative, you're watching someone actually use your site. You can get a lot of insight from that, but you can't really like use it to optimize to some extent because it's like so much work to like get each one. So quantitative and comparative are like the number 1 and 2 ways that websites and people optimize their products. Quantitative obviously is like the mixed panel stuff I was explaining earlier. Comparative is doing things like Optimizely, or other tools that let you like switch out the headline, see if people engage longer, switch out the button color, see if people click on it better, switch out the font weight, or whatever. So those are kind of ways to optimize. So it's sort of like learn, like understand your customer, and then optimize what they do, right? And then obviously there's competitive analysis, which you like, if you care about your competitors. I don't care about my competitors at all. So, these are kind of things we've talked about already. So your goal is to drive them all the way through the funnel, right? And I didn't explain earlier, but like these conversion rate percentages are the things you're optimizing typically. So if you know, whoops, that would be skipping to the end. So if you know, when you start to measure this, you pick like one funnel to measure because you're going to have like a few different ones, and you say, okay, based on the number of people who come in at the top, we're paying X dollars to get each person. Like, you know, how much am I willing, you know, so essentially you can say like, how much am I willing to pay for a person who makes it to this part of the funnel, right? And I'm willing to pay like 10 cents for someone who activates, or all the way down to revenue. Like I'm willing to pay $25 because that person generated above break-even revenue, right? For us, like, you know, we're a software as a service thing that we do the monthly fee thing. Our funnel, like these numbers are a lot bigger because we get $500 a month from each user. So like I'm willing to spend like $10 just to get someone on our site sometimes if they're the right person, all the way down to like I'll spend 2 months worth of your monthly fee, so $1,000 per new account, right? That's still not a ton because like that means that precludes us from doing things like traditional sales where we have like a salesperson who's like $10,000 a month, right? But it lets us do more adventurous things like, I don't know, Twitter ads and Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads. Those are working really well for us, right? So we can know that based on each customer that we get, we can spend $1,000, right? And this funnel like kind of keeps us honest, and we check against this and say, like, how much is it costing for us to get all the way down? Okay, so there's that. So that's about it for Startup Venture. There's tons of presentations on this. This is like not my idea. Startup Metrics for Pirates, Google it if you really care a lot, which you should. We're going to talk now about this other. Do you have any questions before I keep going further? Any like insights or questions?
I just have one question because you get all these numbers about stickiness and all that. But how do you answer the question of why? Why has someone visited the site and then left?
So that's like this part a little bit more. We'll talk about that right now, actually. So, any other questions before I get into this? Who has built? Has anyone built like a web product that they've like actually unleashed on the world, and they're like trying to make money from, or just trying to get people to use? Has anyone done that? Like, what are some of the what did you create?
Well, it's for a organic salon site, and it's just to kind of draw people to the product and create an atmosphere and kind of a branding, which, a brand is easy for something like Google.
What's your goal? Like, your goal is to like have them visit the salon or to buy a product or visit the salon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To actually walk down there because you can't do it online.
Yeah, totally.
Those types of services.
Some of this stuff will help too there though, because you can still, if you're driving traffic to the site through SEO or whatever, you can measure like, okay, based on this happened. Maybe your goal is to set up appointments. That's probably what I would do. I would try to like drive appointment setups, and you can create that funnel to like fundamentally understand your customer in a like you can't understand their motivations, but you can understand like, okay, our goal was this. Did it happen? Anyone else like create stuff or want to create stuff?
I'm not trying to sell something, but I'm running a blog, I can have more people visit it.
Yeah. So even like metrics, you can use that same funnel for blogs. The numbers for getting users are 0. Like, you can't pay any money to acquire users, but you can see like, okay, this person landed from a social media referral, right? Based on their social media referral, did they go to other pages? Can I optimize so they visit other pages? Retention is probably the biggest thing for a blog, right? Because a lot of times, the question, so I used to work for Engadget, right, which is a blog. Like, the question that'll come up all the time is like, do we want to work on a piece that's like 2,000 words, or do we want to just hit 500 words like daily news, right? Daily news offers lots of SEO. Those feature things offer like virality typically. If you're working on like a long story that gets distributed everywhere, you get a lot of new customers or new readers, whatever. And when they come back, like, do they stick around? So measuring some of the stuff, knowing if they're coming back, that'll let you know like, okay, what content do we do? How often do we do it? Like, if you really want to like optimize your blog's presence, which is not the goal of every blog. But you had one. What was yours?
I've been working on the website with one other guy for Impact Guns, which is a local gun shop. And
Cool.
We do a lot of this kind of analytics stuff. But
How do you guys do it?
well, because of the nature of the business, we can't do any pay-per-click or anything
Really?
like that. Yeah, you can't advertise on Google. So all of our traffic is.
SEO probably.
Well, I should say 50% of our traffic is organic search from Google. But you can't, because of the people who own like Amazon and Google and these places where you really, the only place you can really get any bang for your buck, you can't,
Interesting. That's
it falls
interesting.
into a category that can't do pay-per-click or anything. So,
Yeah. So you have to focus a lot on.
So
like,
our search engine optimization is critical for what we do.
That's awesome. How do you guys track your analytics? Do you have like a tool you use or?
We have some homegrown stuff. We used to use Google Analytics, but we found with the amount of traffic we get to our site, we're actually having performance issues with Google Analytics. And we get.
That's probably like a year or two ago.
Yeah, we have. I'm thinking about going back to it now. We've actually been using an open source project called Pwick,
Cool.
which is like Google Analytics, but
Run on your own servers.
run on our own stuff.
That's cool. I'd recommend looking at Mixpanel because they're
It's actually just looking
super cheap.
at
And
yeah.
they don't do page view tracking at all. Like, they actually encourage you to not track your page views at all. They want you to track like events like clicks and stuff. But yeah, you should. Google Analytics fixed their performance issues of like making my page load slower like about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago.
So that's about when that's when we
Yeah.
jumped ship because it was getting really bad.
Yeah, everyone was seeing that. So it's better now.
Is
so,
it?
Yeah. Actually, there's a service any of you guys can use. We use it. is this cool thing called Segment IO. So Segment IO lets you like, you can track all your data through their like little spigot, and you can turn on like, I want to turn on Google Analytics, I want to turn on Mixpanel, I want to turn on, we use this thing called Heap, like, I want to just try out these like random analytics services, and instead of having to like re-instrument your code with like new analytics track calls, you just use their thing and it just works. Anyway, so if you care, check that out. Okay, so we're going to talk about analytics are super overwhelming for most people who like first implement them because they're like so much data that's like impossible to parse. I don't know if you guys have had that experience before though. Like maybe you have like a real-time dashboard. I have one that's, you sit here and you look at it and you're like, what the freak does any of this mean, right? I don't pay for the service, so I just use it anyway. But you get all this data and then you're like, what? Like, oh my gosh. And you just go back to doing what you were doing before where you just like build whatever the freak you feel like, you know? That's like for engineers especially, engineers are more comfortable just like building cool things that make their customers' lives better and not necessarily like what they should be building next, right? Your goal should be to grow your business, like, because the more you grow your business, the better off you can serve your customers. And as a founder, that's like your only goal. There should be, unless you suck like I do. So we're going to talk about lean startups in like a really quick overview, but it's like in the context of analytics. So the normal like method for building web products and other products is to use this like idea, build, measure, learn loop. And the whole goal, so like, you know, if you think about like the 90s and software development, a lot of it was largely just like waterfall release cycle, version 1.0, version 2.0. And you came up with a requirements document, and then you like did all this stuff kind of by yourself, and then you're like, oh, here's the finished product, and you release it on the world, and then like half of it doesn't work, and you do version 2.1 and whatever. With the web and with modern like platforms, we don't have to be beholden to these like version numbers anymore. We can be a lot more flexible and a lot quicker. So this lean startup idea is basically that you have an idea, and instead of like thinking about it for a really long time and trying to like flesh out every corner of it, you just build it. You build whatever your idea is as fast as possible until it's a product. You put it out there and you measure the results, and then you get the data back, you learn from it, and then you like repeat the cycle until you have like Google or something.
How long is that cycle if you were to put it in?
Like, it can be, it depends on your, like the hardest part is data, right? It depends how your scale is. So for us, like we have like, you know, 300 uniques a day. Like you can't get statistically significant stuff in under a day, which is like so annoying. Because you can build something, put it out there. When I worked at Justin TV, we were able to get statistically significant results in like minutes. Like we could put up a new like style of thing, grab, you know, put it for like 10% of our users. Like we could A/B test so fast, and it was awesome. So a lot of it's a function of your scale, how fast you're able to like build it, get it out there, get the data back, and like decide if it was successful. You know, for us, like I think our typical iteration cycle is like 3 weeks because we don't have enough like ways to learn, which is, and I've been the only developer for like a long time, so it also like I do sales calls and go to conferences, and it sucks. So you've heard it, if you build it, it will come. Total bullshit. Like it's such a lie. No one, except for like someone commanded from God to build a baseball field, has that. And you shouldn't think like, the tech shouldn't come first. Like having a cool idea is good, but like having a sellable idea is better. Quick like a side note, so our name is VidPresso. The name of VidPresso is actually the first product that we did. So I have this like huge idea about how video is going to evolve and change and be awesome. I can tell you forever like the intricacies of it. In essence, my prediction is that instead of having these like TV stations that have all this infrastructure to create a video signal, the client device, the phone or tablet or whatever, will actually be creating the video signal locally. So you'll be instructing via data like to tell the client device what to do. Right? That's like a really novel concept, and people. And when I tell people I broadcast, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can save all this money!" So it really excites them. But I had like a bunch of ideas about how to implement that idea, and one of them was like this exact thing you're doing here. I wanted to take speakers who are speaking and sync their slides with the person who is talking, right? So VidPresso, video of the speaker, the PDF or whatever, the PowerPoint, merge them together, and when you watch it, it would be like a cool experience because instead of having the slides be up when you want to see the speaker, you would have the control. It would happen locally. Well, the issue is like the only people who need that are like colleges and people who don't have any money, right? So I came up with this product and like I couldn't sell it to anyone, and I didn't want to raise money for a product that I couldn't sell to anyone, so I just killed it. And like we launched it in like Gigo and like had press, and like seriously 3 weeks later I was just like, we're done. This isn't gonna work. That was when I kind of started thinking about it harder. Like, who has money? What things could I build for them that would like make their life better and that they would pay me for? So that's how we got to the social media thing. So a startup, it's like basically the search for a scalable business model, and the purpose of analytics is to get to product market fit before the money runs out. Product market fit is where like you have the right product for the right market, right? So you build something that is great, and that your users, if they were going to rate you on a scale of 1 to 10, like 90% of them would rate you an 8 or better. So that's like product fit. Market fit is like there's a market that's big enough that you will be able to like sustain your business over. So you have, so like the previous thing, I had neither, right? The little like presentation thing. Our product was horrible, and the market was horrible. So it's like I'm not going to do that. Our current product, I think, is pretty awesome. And the market's like not really that big, to be totally frank. It's like okay. So we don't really have product market fit even yet, but we're kind of like on the way there. And analytics helps you kind of like gauge where you're at, right? So this is exactly what happens to everyone. Like this is gonna happen if you start a business or you do something where you need analytics and you're building a product you want people to use. Like this will be what happens. You'll be like, oh my gosh, I have this great idea for a company and it's awesome, and you have so much fun building it. And you know, like it's just like you're at this high and it's going to be awesome. And then you build it, and usually people, like engineers, love that because it's fun and you get to use new technology. You're, oh, I'm going to use Redis and Node.js. It's going to be so awesome. And like you build all this stuff, Mongo, yeah, like new things. And then you have the product out, and then like either people come or they don't, and you don't really know what's going on. At that point, you're just like, product's done, like it's out there. You start to, maybe you try to measure, you try to like get insights, but it's so much more fun to build things than to think about what you've built that you just stop. And like it basically ends like here or here, right? So you just like kill it though. And then you don't learn anything. So your product basically stays, you know, maybe like incrementally better, but you're not scaling, you're not like, it's not something that's gonna like have as much of an impact as it could, right? And this happens for lots of reasons, but the biggest one is that like we don't like it's harder to ask questions and be accountable to those questions. The other thing is that Dave McClure thing I just showed you has like all these steps that you can measure, and like all this crap that you can learn, but like it's so overwhelming. Instead of focusing on like, you know, everything that you can measure, pick one thing, one metric, one thing that you can measure that will be the most important thing for your business. So for us, when we're SaaS, the first thing you do is empathy. Like you have one customer who you like please, and you make sure they like the product, and you just know them, so they'll tell you directly. Then you get to stickiness. Like that's where you measure. That's when we built that dashboard that was like, are people, like how often do they use the product? Is it every day? Is it every week? Is it like once a month? Because the more they use the product, the more likely they are to not get rid of us, right? So then you measure like that. Then it's like, okay, can we like spread to other people? Virality, we don't measure that because we don't care. We're not good. Revenue, we measure. Anyway, so each of these things, though, you have like a different kind of one metric that matters depending on what stage you're in. And if you obsessively focus over one thing, it's so much easier to get validated learning. It's so much easier to understand what your business is doing or what your product's doing than if you try to like measure everything and pick like, you know, I want to use 6 different analytics services. I want to get survey results, and I want to like measure all the traffic. Yeah, it just gets like messy, right? This is another key thing. A lot of people will pick a vanity metric, so they'll pick like page views, and they'll be like, our product has a bajillion page views. Like that metric does not change how your product works, right? If you optimize for page views, unless you're trying to grow like the top end of your funnel, you're gonna have the wrong thing. Downloads are the worst for mobile apps. There are like, every press release you ever see from a mobile app maker is like, oh, we have like a bajillion downloads. Like downloads is not a good metric for a mobile app because most mobile apps never get used past the download, right? The better metric for mobile apps is active users, probably, depending on your app, but it's probably going to be like monthly active users, like how many people use your app every month. For websites like ours, you know, it's active users plus revenue, obviously, if you care how much money you make a lot. Anyway, a lot of people will come with these like vanity metrics though, and they'll be all they tell people. They'll tell everyone about it, and really all it does is just like boost your ego and nothing else. So be very cognizant as you come up with your like one metric that matters, that it actually does matter, that it will affect how your product like evolves. Okay, we're gonna talk about 3 V's, 5. We're gonna talk this one, and this one. So here we go. So as you build something, you know, before you're very far, you already have existing data that exists. The strategy that you should take, if you already have something out there that's you're like wanting to turn it into being data-driven, identify your key metric that matters. OMTM, one metric that matters. I had to Google that because I don't know what it was. Pick a number, like, so measure your initial thing, like we have 300 uniques a day or something. Draw a line in the sand, say, our goal is to get to 500 a day, consistently. And then figure out how to optimize that one metric, right? So I'll give you an example. Well, first I'm going to show you this graph, and then I'll give you an example. So this is the actual cycle of how it goes, right? Pick your metric, pick your number, think of ways to improve it, probably through intuition. We'll talk about that. If you don't have any data, just be like, I think that this thing is going to make our site better. If you do have data, like say you have a bunch of users and you can analyze your biggest spending users, figure out the one thing that they have in common. Maybe it's the browser they use, maybe it's where they live, maybe it's like which Pokemon they love, I don't know, whatever. Figure out the thing that unites them if you have the data for it. Come up with a hypothesis. So if we change the header of our website from 0-point font to 100, people will like it more. Design a test, make changes in production, do the test, measure the results. Did we move the needle? Maybe. If you didn't, do you keep going? Do you try another experiment that's like along the same lines? Do you draw a new line to try to go for? Do you just try over another experiment? Or did you win? Because if you win, good job. You're the man.
You might want to draw a new line there too, anyway.
Exactly. So the key part of so I'll give you, this is Airbnb's awesome experiment that worked, and everyone references it all the time. Airbnb is a place for people to rent out spare rooms or entire properties to vacationers. And their question was, do hosts with professional photography get more business? So their gut instinct was, we think that people who have better pictures on their site get more bookings, generally. So they came up with like a special minimum viable product. They call it concierge. It's this principle that it's totally not scalable, or they thought, totally not scalable. You can do it. You can hire, 20, or you can even just get a DSLR and go take professional pictures yourself, right? Try to put it on a couple different places, see what the results were. 2 to 3 times more bookings. That seems like a success. Scale out. Use that data now to scale out your hypothesis. Was it just that we picked 20 good houses? Was it that we picked whatever? Let's try doing 100. Let's try doing 110 different markets. Like, let's just scale it and see what happens. All the while though, they're testing. They're using the data to gauge whether they were successful. So, in February of last year, they did 5,000. They're doing even more now. If you list your home on Airbnb, they will have a professional photographer come take pictures of it. That seems crazy, but the data shows them that they get they get 2 to 3 times more bookings per place. Not just like the same users on the site will book 2 or 3 more times, but like across, they get actually more bookings by doing this, right?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on, this is kind of weird though. This gut instinct is what drove it, right? So you can't reduce like product development to a science. It's not like completely hypothesis driven. It's that gut instinct that it's like percolating under the surface, and that vision that you have is going to drive a lot of this stuff. And then that's when you take it to the next step. So these are 2 examples. If you don't have data, like, oh, those houses that look nice, I think they do really well. But if you do have the data, because you already have like lots of customers, you go through and say like, correlate all these like things. Like, what's the top thing they all have in common, right? You can read that and agree. So if you don't have any feedback, you have nothing to analyze. I'm going to give you an example that I know a lot more about than Circle of Moms. So I alluded to it before. I used to work at Justin TV. Have you guys heard of Justin TV? Have you heard of Twitch TV?
Yep.
Twitch is like a way bigger deal, right? So I worked there in 2010, 2009, around there. And when I was working there, I was hired in like November. Actually, I was hired Thanksgiving weekend, like 2009, I think. And I worked remotely for a month, and then I started in the office like the beginning of the year in January. And my first day on the job, they fired my entire team except for me. And I was like, what just happened? So they had this hypothesis that like, they saw some startups who were, like Twitter specifically, had really good luck with courting celebrities and courting like famous people to use the service. And so they were like, what if we did the same thing for live video? Maybe that'll like drive tons of people or whatever. So my whole team was like I'm a video producer, and my job is to produce videos, like the coolest quality live video stuff, right? They had this whole team of people that was like talking to bands and celebrities and like Justin Bieber's and trying to get them to use Justin TV. And when they like did the numbers, and it like wasn't moving the needle at all, so they fired like everyone except for me, because I like my job fits into other pieces really well, right? So while I was there was this like big crisis of like, what do we do? Like we're not, like they were flat growth, which is like death for a startup. If you're flat, it's like not good. You can't raise money, you can't, like, it's just a big problem. And so they're flat growth for like a year. And they're like, crap, like what are we gonna do? And they have like 1 billion founders. They had all these other issues too that were like structural. But they, this one guy, Emmett, who was one of the founders, there's like 4 founders of Justin TV. Emmett played StarCraft, and StarCraft 2 was coming out, and we were all like, yeah, StarCraft 2, wow. We noticed that there was this like huge uptick in gamers broadcasting on the site. Like there was just a ton of people who would show people themselves playing a game, and like we did the numbers, and like the gaming part actually was like the biggest section on the site. And not only that, but like like the other sections on the site were basically piracy. So like gaming broadcasts were outpacing like European soccer broadcasts and like UFC and stuff, right? And so there was this moment where everyone's like there might be something to that, you know, like let's check that out further. So we started doing experiments. One of them was to attract game publishers, because you know at that point Justin TV was making like lots of money from like really weird mechanisms. Like they would charge overseas users to watch Justin TV. So if you like lived outside the US, you'd get a pop-up that was like want to keep watching? Pay $5 a month or something. But everyone in the US didn't get that, so the tech press didn't care. But like, so this time they're like, well, like what if we start, you know, getting advertisers who will pay us lots of money? Like, will game advertisers pay us lots of money? So my job became like no joke. I seriously did so many of these. We would get a new game was coming out. There was one called Kane and Lynch. It was like popular. There's a couple other ones that were like really popular. And we would talk to the game. We had a huge scale, like millions and millions and millions of people. And we would be like, well, we're just gonna like put me playing video games on the homepage for like all day and see what happens. And the game publishers went crazy because they loved it. The viewers are interacting with me playing game. Like it's literally just me like playing Kane and Lynch. I'm not even like, I used to be like a hardcore gamer. Now I'm just like, I play sports games, like nothing else. Like I'm lame. And all these people were like, that heard of Kane and Lynch, they were coming and watching, and they were just like so excited. And I was, you know, I'm kind of sarcastic and whatever. And so people liked interacting with me and liked my presence and whatever. But that was like a really big success. And so that like validated a lot of experiments. Like we can make money from this. Game publishers will pay us, and they like it. Those like little experiments. I left the company like a couple months later, but those experiments formed the foundation for what became Twitch TV. Twitch TV is this like, it's a huge deal now. They have like 150 employees at Twitch. Like, it's crazy. But those experiments were validated learning for Emmett, who became the CEO. And he really like built out this vision around like like ESPN of video games, right? ESPN of video game broadcasting. And now they have like 90 million uniques a month, and they had this like thing at the Staples Center a couple weeks ago where people were playing League of Legends in front of like a stadium full of people. Like, so that became like a huge thing for them. And that validated learning was really like what did it for them. they had a hypothesis, they got data, we tried out little experiments that cost no money, like to do the me on the homepage was like literally no risk, you know, and it worked. And like that, they were just off to the races. Okay, so that's my way better example than Mom Circle, because I don't know anything about that. Okay, so that's like, hopefully gives you like a gut feeling for like what's possible with this stuff. How much time do I have? I have like 20 minutes, wow. Okay, so we're gonna talk about cohorts briefly. This is the thing I know the least about, but I know that it's very important. So essentially, like your product, if you're doing this continuous build, iterate, learn cycle, you're inevitably going to have like the person who joined 6 months ago has a very different experience, hopefully, than the person who joined 2 weeks ago. And by measuring people in cohorts, by measuring them like, okay, these are all our users that joined in January, right? You can see if they stick around, if they're retained. You can see what their experience is like using the site. And by measuring them in cohorts, you can more accurately tell the progress of your business. So they talk about segments here. Segments are like pieces of cohorts, so like gender or age or whatever, right? Okay. You can use, this is the most important part that I almost skipped. So by testing cohorts, you can get better understanding of your changes. So like, the people who came in January who've been using the site for 6 months, they're different than the people who just came yesterday. And when you run your A/B tests, having that extra knowledge gives you like a better, you can optimize your tests better, right? Like I'm trying to optimize for new users. If the people whose behavior was like 6 months ago, if they stop using the site, like that's still a problem. Like you need to know, and by having them chunked out in segments, it gives you just like better understanding of what's going on. Okay, whoops, that's backwards. This is forwards. So here's an example. If you don't track cohorts, your average revenue per customer is falling. Like why? When you can track and you can say like, okay, people that are a week old or a month old, they're paying this much. This is how much they're paying across 2 months. You can track and you can see like the health of your business better than just by like flattening everyone out. And you can say like, is the revenue growth growing longer term or is it not? So yeah, we don't currently break down our analytics by cohort because it's actually kind of difficult. Like mixed panel and things like that make it simpler, but I would say it's kind of a more advanced thing anyway. So yeah. We're going to talk about local maximums really quickly. So optimization doesn't get you everywhere. Optimization. So like you have a product that's out there, and you want to optimize like parts of it to try to make it be better. And you draw those lines in the sand, and you say like we're going to get it to 500 or whatever. Sometimes like you might be able to you can only optimize so far, right? So like you can only change so many headlines and only update the colors so many times, which are like really small investments, typically like seconds. I can come with a new test, start running it, see the results, whatever. Sometimes like you hit a local maxima though, right? You say like you've changed the headline as well as you can, and you literally can't get that conversion number to go higher at all. Like not at all. That's when you might want to say like, okay, would a radical new redesign of our site like fix it, right? And that's more investment. That's like not a 2-second thing where you're swapping out variations. It's like, okay, we get the designers in, we start talking and sort of starting over. So you don't, like some people will think you can like, optimize your way to like success, but maybe the difference between your current design and the new design you're gonna come out with is like 20% better versus just like 1% each headline variation, Okay, I'm gonna skip all this crap, because none of us are gonna work at big companies because we're not stupid. Just kidding. Okay, this is the one that I want to talk about. So if you take time to do all this stuff, that first thing I showed you of all the steps and where like people just stop after they measure, they like don't learn, that's like the default of every company ever, because it's so much easier to build than it is to understand, right? It's the same reason why refactoring code is like seen as such a chore, because it's so much harder to read someone else's code than it is to just like build it yourself, So they come up with this sort of thing that you're supposed to do weekly, and so it's just like a framework. Like you don't have to do this, but I'm actually kind of a fan. You say like, okay, what did we do last week? What's what's the one metric that matters that we're currently optimizing for? What happened last week? Did we like accomplish that? Why not? And then if you didn't accomplish it, you list out some problems. And then you say like, okay, problem one, we're not closing sales. I don't know, something like that. Why? Well, I think it's because no one's coming to the site. Okay, how do we fix that? We do blog posts or content marketing or buy ads or like whatever. And you try that. This week we're going to do that. We're going to make everyone on the same page. We're all going to focus on this one thing. And then you have like, if you have like 3 or 4 people, you all are like talking to each other about the same thing for that week. You try to like do it. That's a way of instilling like metrics. So that like Justin TV was like, oh my gosh, it was like day and night. So they, like even though they fired that whole team because the thing wasn't working, that wasn't really data driven, that was more like gut. Like we just knew that it wasn't working, or they just knew and they didn't fire me luckily. We moved to this model though of data driven operations, and it was very difficult. It's kind of contentious because like you're so used to just like doing whatever you want and having like little accountability. Moving to this is painful. What we did was, we had this, so growth was flat, right? We were not getting any more users. And we said, well, we think, like, the whole company put the hypothesis around, like, we don't have enough broadcasters. And one of the things we said was, like, why don't we have enough broadcasters? Well, the broadcasting workflow sucked. It was bad. So we spent, like, a month optimizing that. And we get together for team meetings, and we had a goal, and our goal was, like, I don't know, 1 million broadcasters. I don't even know what the goal was, right? We, like, put up butcher paper and put up like, a temperature chart and said like, we're here, this week we're here, this week we're here, and our goal is to get to that top goal. That was more like the local maxima problem. Like even if we solved that, it wouldn't have mattered, right? Because the Twitch thing was like the actual real good solution. But at the time we were just, as a company, like we'd get together in these team meetings and we'd say like, okay, we're gonna improve the broadcasting workflow this way, we're gonna A/B test it, and then when we get together we would talk about the results. That's like a healthy, data-driven environment. This sort of style of problem solution thing is going to get you kind of on that track. If you don't have a mechanism in your own head, just like use this as a starting point. They also have these things, the 3 threes. So the high-level 3 assumptions about your business. People like so ours is like people want to use social media on TV. People are willing to use our crazy like scheme and not use custom hardware. I don't know the third one, so we only do these 2. 3 actions to take based on those assumptions, like, we need more customers, so we think that by doing blog posts, it'll get better anyway. And then 3 experiments to run to like fulfill those actions, right? So that gives you like 9 things to work on. Most startups can only do like 1. But as you get bigger, you can like expand your framework out to this. So the idea is you think about the assumptions monthly, and you talk about, this is like a big picture thing, you talk with like everyone. The top level of the organization, if you have one, I don't like that, but they will talk weekly about like what we're gonna do tactically to like make this happen. And then everyone is gonna talk daily about the experiments they want to try to run to like make it work, right? So I think that's about it. These are some examples. Maybe you have a I don't know, null, or like this is like built for something like that, or like Google Answers or Yahoo Answers, right? Lots of people answer questions. Our goal is to increase the questions answered, so we could try having them ask their friends. We could try making it so that the tests are faster, or changing the UI so that we can get more questions. That's kind of another framework-y thing, but yeah. They say be subversive in the end. For me, like, this is, it's really, like, it's not easy. My whole goal in this was just to give you, like a 2-second overview of, like, analytics ideas. This is a book you can read. It's called The Analytics. The cool thing is we have the internet, so you can, like, look all this up yourself. And, yeah. Any questions? It's really big, I'm sorry. Do you guys feel like you learned something, I hope?
Yeah. Okay, good. I just had a question about this incremental changes that take you to what you call the local maximum. So is the assumption always that there is another maximum out there? That you-
Yeah, like you hope,
You,
right?
well, you hope, but I mean, I'm just saying, there's always gonna be
Yeah.
that redesign or that refactor.
So when you look at this chart thing, that's when you're asking that question, right? Because you try all this stuff, and then you ask, like, did we move the needle, and how much, right? If your goal is to hit 500 pages and you're only at 200, your optimization increases it 10%, it's 20. Your goal is like 300. Like, how do you know, can you actually optimize to get to your goal, or do you have to like rethink the whole workflow? And that's what you're asking, like here, you know. So yeah, there probably is always a next like best thing until there isn't. Anyone else have questions?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Randall. Well, I think,
Sweet.
yeah.
Why do you hate Y Combinator? You hate their selection process?
Well, and they take 6% of your company for a seed round, so
Yeah, they're awesome.
you have those 6% of your company for a seed round. What about your A round or your B round? Where you're gonna lose like 30% of your company?
Yeah, that's how venture capital works.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's awful.
that's okay. We'll talk about it later. I was just wondering. Yeah, I guess that's it. So.
So the stuff that you were showing, you had that lean analytics class, but what were the other slides from? Is that?
That's Dave McClure's thing.
That's
Started
Dave
venture
McClure's.
So.
Did you get anything out of Alex, or did he just say, "Hey, we gotta do this analytics"?
Oh yeah, he's like, go talk about analytics. I was like, okay.
Okay.
I love the analytics. Yeah.
So, have you ever worked for a large company? Just out of
Yeah, that's why I hate it. Because I worked for AOL, which is like the worst. Like the worst of big companies. Seriously, like, oh, that was.
And compare that to Microsoft or
Yeah. So I worked at Engadget, and at the time we were like, I don't know, 20 people max. And then AOL swallows us up. And AOL expects like, the thing that's the worst is like, they have, you know, like the homework channel and like all this stuff from the AOL legacy days. And they're all super scared of our company, so they like, would not work with us. And oh, it was just, it was a nightmare. CNET was like equally